Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Okay. Thank you for spending your Sunday with us. I'm Matthew and this is Dillon.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, welcome to our first live session with Let's Talk Property. As this is our first live session, maybe there might be some technical stuff that we might pop up, so bear with us. So we are still learning on the way. But if you have any question along the session, maybe you got some question that come into your mind, maybe you can type in the comment. We will later answer to the best of our ability during the Q&A session. So today's topic, how to avoid buying a new launch that might drop price during a crisis. So we believe that every time when we talk about property, it's the most expensive asset in our life. So we all want to buy something that will go up and not go down, right? So today we're going to talk about it. So I'll hand over the stage to you, Dillon.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so today's topic is actually about new launches, and we are here to talk about how to actually avoid buying a new launch that might drop price during a crisis. Because I believe that is a question that some of you might be asking, as well as we have received a lot of questions on this topic, whereby will the new launch prices drop, especially during a crisis. So I want to actually explain on some key factors you can use to actually determine the possibility whether the new launch might drop price or not. So that will be on today's topic. Okay, next week, actually, Matthew will go through about resale private properties. The topic will be how to preserve your money through resale private properties. So next Sunday, 2 p.m., same time as Matthew will actually go through this topic with you guys, because I believe some of you might be actually looking at resale properties and you want to know how to actually choose a resale property wisely and what are some factors we should look at. Okay, so before I start proper, let me first do a disclaimer. Whatever that we are going to share here is actually based on our research and also based on our own opinion. So, if you are looking to purchase or looking to invest, please find your agent or find a real estate professional to help you and also do your necessary homework. So, number one, transaction volume. Transaction volume, in other words, can be also known as transaction numbers, which is to say what is the number of units transacted in a particular development. So, for example, you can actually look at number one, the number of units sold in a development, or you can also look at the percentage sold in a development. Okay, that would be the first thing. The second thing we should look at also is the recent activities of the development you're looking at. For example, what is the number of units sold weekly? Are they experiencing a healthy transaction, or is the numbers a bit slow? So why do we want to know all this? With all these numbers and all these figures, we are able to understand a bit better whether or not the possibility of the development will actually drop price. So in terms of the number of units sold, okay, let me give you an example. For example, now let's say we are the developer for project A, okay, and we actually only sold 10%. Is there a higher possibility that the developer might drop the price? If it's possible. Of course, we will not know for sure whether they will drop price or they will increase price, but these are some key factors we can look at to actually determine the higher possibility or is there a lower possibility. So if I am the developer of project A and it's only 10% sold, I'm actually not so confident, and there might be a high chance that I drop the price if I'm able to. Now we compare ourselves to, let's say, project B, and if we've only sold 60%. Comparing project B and project A, project B developer is much more confident because they have already sold 60%, which means they have only 40% left to go, and the possibility of them dropping price would definitely be lesser. Of course, this is just a rough gauge and it's just one factor. There are, of course, other factors to look at, which I will show you. Second thing we must look at, besides just the percentage sold, is actually the recent activities, or rather the number of units that are being sold weekly. What is happening in the development. For example, if I'm project A and I only sold 1 unit in a month, again, is there a higher possibility that I might drop price if I'm able to? 1 unit a month, I would say, is not something ideal, not an ideal sales figure for the developer. But if you compare, for example, if you are the developer for project B and you sold 10 units in a week, and if you are able to sell 10 units in a week, can I say that you are more confident? In fact, you might be thinking whether you are selling it too cheap. Should you in fact increase price? Or at the very least, you will just remain at this price so that your units can move. But I will say the last thing that comes to your mind is that I want to drop price because you're experiencing a healthy number of transactions. Yeah. So these are some things that we can actually look at in terms of deciding, whether this new launch, is there a high risk if I go that they might drop price, or is there a low risk? So the second thing that we should look at, which is also very, very important, is actually the profit margin of developers. So to explain the profit margin of developers, I'm going to show you some examples to give you a rough idea. So for example, let's take Margaret View as an example. In fact, I last heard Margaret View is almost fully sold. Maybe I think 1 unit left before it's fully sold. So I think it's a good example we can look at. The information that you see on the screen, actually, we extracted out from the property websites that do all this research for us. And you can see we actually have the estimated break-even cost. So for Margaret View, the break-even PSF is 1,005, around 1,005. So how we derive this number, actually, they do for us lah. They have the land cost, the construction cost, everything, and then we manage to get out the break-even. So before I show you the next slide, I actually want to explain a bit what is profit margin. So for example, if the developer break even is 1,005 and you are selling at 1,009, this means your break even is actually about 400 PSF. You take 1,009 and you minus 1,005, you get the profit margin of the developer. So Margaret View actually launched close to 1,009, but their break even is 1,005. So with a 400 PSF margin, if they decide to lower the price, can they do so? In fact, they actually did, and the price went down to below 1,007, close to 1,007, about 16XX PSF. So even at 16XX PSF, they are still making a profit margin of about 100 PSF, 100 to 150 PSF, because their break even, as we saw earlier, is only 1,005. And in fact, moving on, they actually increased the price, and then at a certain point, they dropped the price again. So why am I sharing with you this? This is just to show you an example that if the profit margin for a developer is high, there is actually room for them to drop price. So if there is a chance and a room for them to drop price, is this a higher risk? If the profit margin is high, I would say the chances of them dropping price, the risk is quite high. But it depends on other factors as well. I will show you a second example, Trey Residences. Their break even is 1,250 PSF, as you can see here. Okay, so they actually launched at 1,006, and eventually the lowest they went was about 1,004. So as we look at this chart, you see 1,004, actually their break even, which was 1,002, 1,250, they still have a profit margin. They still make close to about 100 to 200 PSF. But at 1,006, their profit margin was close to maybe about 350 PSF. They could actually lower the price and still have margin for them to make profits. So these two examples is to show you that if you're looking at development with a high profit margin, we have to be careful at the price we enter and to find out whether the chance of it dropping, the risk, how high is it? I'll show you an example. Grandeur Park, 1002, but this time it actually launched close to break even. We see that they are launched at average of about, I would say 1004, close to 1004, but their break even is 1002 PSF, 1238 PSF. So you see, they launched their break even, their margin is actually not high at the start. When the market is not doing so well, the demand is not so well, they can actually launch near to break even. But I have not seen, as with the previous examples, of any development that launch below their break even. But you see, eventually when the market pick up, when they are able to, they will eventually increase price, especially when they are nearing their TOP. So these examples are actually trends that we want to show you in terms of profit margin. What is your risk? For example, today you are a buyer looking at new launches. I think the number one thing you should really consider is your risk. So this is why I'm sharing with you this factor. But then again, I'm going to show you another example. This is Clementi Canopy. Okay, their break even you see is actually close to 1000 PSF, about 1068 PSF. Okay, and for this, the break even is about 1000. Okay, so I will show you later the price movement. Clement Canopy actually launched close to 1004. Okay, 1004 to about 1000 PSF. The difference and the profit margin is about 400 PSF. Based on our examples earlier, 400 PSF is actually quite a big margin, which means the developer can drop about 200 PSF, they still make a 200 PSF margin. But you see, Clement Canopy, they did not drop price. In fact, they continue to increase, and the highest they ever reached was 1007 PSF. So why is this happening? We must also look at the supply and demand in an area, in a location, when we're looking at new development. For example, if the profit margin is high, even though it's high, but if the demand is there, the price will still continue to move, especially in Clementi where the land supply is low and the demand is relatively high. You can see that no matter what is the profit margin, the units are still moving, the prices are still moving. So I'm sharing with you this to also let you know that different area, different location, price move differently as well. So even though it's 1004 PSF profit margin, they can even sell up to 1007, which is 700 PSF margin. Consumers are still going to enter and still going to buy it, and the risk of it dropping, or rather the chances of it dropping, is not high if you are talking about a location where the supply is not so high and the demand is high. Because real estate, at the end of the day, I would say, is really all about supply and demand. So I'm going to show you this development, so this interesting development, Panorama, break even, 1002, 1243 PSF. We look at the chart. You can see during this period, 2014, 2013, or 2014, all the way to about 2017, their prices were actually very, very, very close to their break-even price. They were selling very close to their break-even price. So I would say during this period, actually 2013 to 2017, the supply actually, in terms of the entire Singapore, is quite high. And secondly, 2013 was when the major cooling measures was implemented. For example, things like TDSR and all those kind of things, they actually limited buyers. And when cooling measures were in place, especially major ones, it will cause the market to actually cool down. So when the market cool down, and buyers actually take a step back and they started to do a wait and see approach, which means the demand was not very high during that period. And in this case, this developer, I would say maybe they have no choice. They could actually only sell close to break even. Okay, but eventually, when the market pick up, you can see that they actually went up. The highest point was about 1,006. So they still, at the end of the day, still went up and sold units at 1,006. And in fact, if you were one of the few that bought during 2014 at the right price, and then you sold during 2018 or after 2017, you could see that actually there are owners that make quite a hefty profit. The highest profit was about 300,000 for those that entered at at close to break even price. You could see the purchase price was close to break even, about 1.2, some even got it about 1.1. But eventually they could sell about 1,004, 1,005, some even sold 1,006. So the key thing after knowing about all this, about profit margin, about how to gauge whether it might drop price, the important thing we want to understand also, today, if I were to enter in a new launch, if I were to go and buy a new launch, and let's say I'm buying for investment, I want to make profits, how am I going to leverage on the developer sales? How am I going to actually so-called have an upside potential? So I'm going to show you some examples as well. This example I'm going to show you is Forest Woods. Once again, we look at the break even. It's about 1,001, 1,179. And they were launching average about 1,003, 1,1350, 1,350, the lowest point. And they slowly went up to about 1,005. So I just want to show you the so-called how we leverage on developer sales. So today, for example, when Forest Woods first launched, and we managed to buy, let's say, level 9. This one, we are comparing the same stack 29. We managed to purchase at 1,003 PSF. Okay. Eventually, we see the price, fourth floor at 2018, which is about 2 years later, they were selling at 1,006 PSF. So the difference from buying at 1,003, or rather buying at 2016, and then eventually those that bought later part at 2018, the difference is about 286 PSF, which is about 270,000. 270,000 price difference, which means if you're buying the fourth floor, you are paying 270,000 more than buying at the ninth floor. So of course, people will say, wow, in that case, I think the best time to buy would actually be on the launch time. I would say buying at launch or not buying at launch is not really the key factor here. What we must look at is really the PSF or the entry price that we're entering. It doesn't matter whether it's launch or not launch, because if you saw earlier, there are some developments that bought at launch and the price actually dropped. So it's not about launch or not launch. The key thing, we must look at the PSF. If you enter at 1,003, 1,348 PSF, and the break even was about 1,179, can I say a 200 PSF difference margin is reasonable? Because at the end of the day, let's be very honest, developer also need to make a certain profit margin. So those that enter at 1,003, they are actually quite safe. And let's say maybe you decide not to go for the launch and you wait, and 1 year later, the price increase is only about 50 PSF. My question to you, can you still enter? That depends. If you look 1,390, I would say it's still relatively safe to enter. So it doesn't mean that you miss the launch, you cannot buy in already. If let's say even from the launch to now, the price movement is not much, you can actually still see some margin for the developer to increase the price. So of course, this one we must look at other factors as well. For example, what is the profit margin? are the demands, is it going to be increasing, you know, especially when they have sold certain units and more sold their lesser units in the market? Is the demand going to increase? So this is what I mean by leveraging on the developer sales. We can still enter at after launch if the PSF is right. Another good example I want to show you will be Gem Residences, which is located in Toa Payoh. So for Gem Residences, actually the estimated break-even is about 1,002 PSF. 1,232 PSF. This is their break-even. We see they launched about 1,004, 200 PSF profit margin. Like I said, very normal, very reasonable. But at the end of the day, you see how much the highest they went. They actually went, the highest we seen was about 2,000 PSF. 2,000 PSF from 1,004 PSF is a 600 PSF jump. That is a very high jump. So let's look closely at this development. You can see, like I said earlier, 1,004 was at during the launch price. Okay, level 28 got it about 1.3 million. Eventually, even though it's at a higher level, this person bought it at 1.8 million. Okay, but the difference, even though it's higher floor, the difference is close to 535,000 difference, which is about 572 PSF. More than 500 PSF difference. So based on this chart, can I say the one that actually bought at 1,004 PSF, they actually bought at the so-called the correct price, because eventually others that entered, they actually entered on a high. You see the jump from 2016 to 2017, they actually jump about, I think, less than 100. And then, you know, October 2017, they actually jump. And then you see it slowly jump and it slowly jump. And ultimately, the highest transacted was 2,000 PSF. So again, what am I trying to say? For example, the person that entered here, you could say, but he entered at 1,005, the profit margin is high. But you must understand, even though the profit margin is high, if you consider the entire region, which is the RCR region, where Toa Payoh is located, a lot of the units have already gone for 1,007, 1,008. Some have even reached close to 1,009. Even if you enter 1,005 and the profit margin is high, is there actually a chance for growth? So of course, there's still other factors besides just profit margin. But for today's presentation, what I'm trying to share with you is that the profit margin actually is one of the key factors that can help you determine whether the development will it increase price, or at the very least help you to determine whether it might drop price. Another thing I want to share with you, okay, a lot of people also say timing is very important. Timing affect the prices, which is very true. So let me just touch a bit on this. I'm going to share with you these two examples, Skyview and Sky Habitat. Okay, both actually are side by side. If you see the picture, both are side by side. Okay, and then the key thing also, both have the same break-even PSF. So they're actually side by side. We're comparing two side by side developments, and then we're comparing both that have the same break-even. So it's a very fair comparison. Okay, but let's look at what happened in terms of the price trend. The blue line that you see is actually Sky Habitat, and the red line is Skyview. So for Sky Habitat, when they first launched, they actually launched at relatively high, about 1,006. When they are break even, is about 13 exact PSF. So they actually launched about close to, I would say, 300 PSF difference. Close to 300 PSF difference. So the profit margin is quite high. In fact, if you ask me, I would say anything higher than 200 PSF is considered quite a high profit margin. Okay. For Sky Habitat, when they launched at 1,006, eventually we see what happened. If we look at here, they actually dropped to about 1,004. after 2019 based on the latest transaction. Okay. But on the other hand, Skyview directly beside, same even price, same break-even price. How much did Skyview launch? Skyview actually launched very, very close to the break-even. You see the line here. This is about 1,003. So we saw their break-even is 1,003. Skyview actually launched at 1,003 as well during the launch. But eventually, do you see that their development price is higher than Sky Habitat? So of course, when we see this chart, which I sometimes share with my clients, they actually ask me, but why Skyview, the price is higher than Sky Habitat? Okay, the key thing I want to let you all know is that the reason why Skyview is higher, or one reason why, I would say is because Skyview is newer. You see, it launched this period, but Sky Habitat already launched back in close to 2012. Okay, so definitely when we talk about newer developments, the prices for newer developments tend to be higher than older developments. Because one thing, new launches or new developments, actually there is a what we call the TOP effect, and at the end of the day, new definitely will be priced higher than old. If you talk about the trends, of course that one is as a general rule. So let's see, for example, Sky Habitat, those that bought at a high back then, which I mentioned they bought about 1,006, okay, and eventually those that decided to sell around 2018, okay, they actually make a so-called loss, okay. On the other hand, we look at Skyview, okay, those that bought 2013, you see they bought about 1,003, some even got 1,001, okay. Eventually when they sold in 2018, you can see a lot of them make profits. In fact, in terms of profitable transaction, there was a total of 55 profitable transactions, which I would say is quite a good number lah. Okay, so how does profit margin help us? Why am I sharing with you this? Okay, I'm trying to tell you that actually when we look at profit margin, it's important, because if we look at this example, I want to show you actually those that buy near the break-even price, they actually still have hope. Okay, not everyone lose money. Like I show you, this is the price trend for Sky Habitat. Okay, we look further. Like I said, when they first launched, 2013, before 2013, was close to 1,006. Eventually, you see the price, 1,004. Okay, but now, but we see here this period, 2014, actually got people enter at close to break even or enter at break even. Do you see this transaction here? 1,003. So if I buy here, okay, and then I exit around here, where you see the majority of the transaction happened in 2018 was actually close to 1,005. Do I make money? Actually, those people that bought at the right time, at the right price, bought money, make profits. So you see, 2014, they bought about 1,003, close to break even. Eventually, when they sell in 2018, 2019, they sold about 1,005 to 1,006 PSF. So these people that enter at close to break even, actually, they still make a decent amount of profit. They did not lose money as compared to those that I show you that bought at 1,006. Actually, some of them lose money. So another thing that I also want to touch on, which I feel that is an important thing we should look at, is, for example, how does land price affect developer profit margin? Because as we saw earlier, land price is also a cost to the developer, which a lot of people say, if the developer buy the land expensive, they will sell as expensive. And some people say if the developer buy the land cheap, higher chance they will sell us cheap. Is this really true? I want to bring your attention to this place in West Coast, where actually there are actually 3 plots of land. All is around the same area, West Coast Vale. Okay, so this first example, it will be Park Rivera. Okay, I want to show you the land cost is about 551 PSF per plot ratio. So we did our calculations, and then eventually we found out that their break even is 970 PSF. Okay, after we add in all the costs. Then this other plot of land we see here is actually Twin View. So for Twin View, their break even would be about 1000 PSF. Okay, and for this other plot of land also beside, you see one is here, one is here, one is here. Okay, their break even is about 1002 PSF. So why am I showing you this? Actually, I'm showing you this to let you understand, even though the plot of land is side by side, but if you look closely, this one was closed, or rather sold in 4th August 2015. The land cost was only 551, or rather their break even was only 970 PSF. Just 2 years later, the plot of land beside for Twin View was actually their break even cost was about 1000 PSF. And just 1 year later, Whistler Grand, when they bought the plot of land, it was actually about 800 PSF per plot ratio, which eventually their break even is about 200 or close to 200 PSF higher than Whistler Grand. So I just want to let you all know that based on this example, you can see that every year after year, the land cost or the land price actually increases. Okay, but how much did Twin View and how much did Whistler Grand sell their property based on their land price? Twin View, you saw, if you see the average, is about 1498. Okay, 1498. If we go back to the previous slide, 1498 and their break even is 1000. They actually make close to a 400 PSF. So did they sell you cheap? Did they lower their profit margin because they bought the land lower? Actually, they did not. In fact, they still sold at about average 400 PSF profit margin. Because at that time, if you study the market, you would know that Twin View was actually one of the so-called best-selling projects back in 2017. At that point, it was really crazy. Everyone was the demand was very high because the supply actually dropped in 2017. Okay, but then again, we compare to Whistler Grand. You saw earlier Whistler Grand, their break even is about 1002. So let's say Whistler Grand developer want to make the same amount as Twin View developer. They will want to sell about 400 PSF profit margin, which means they actually have to launch at about 1006. But did they launch at 1006? No, they actually launched till about 1004. So the key thing is what? The key thing is that when we look at the land prices and then we look at the profit margin, the only thing when I look at the break even, what I know is that the developer, the chances of it selling at break even, or rather selling lower than break even, is very, very low. So if you're buying something close to break even, the developer is not going to lower the price, or rather the chances is very low. But if you are talking about a good market, the developer will still try to make a high profit margin, because at the end of the day, developers also want to make money. So the main thing here is to, when we study the numbers, is to be very clear. Are we buying at a high risk or are we buying at a low risk? So yeah, so I actually come to the end of my sharing, and this is the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, you can actually write in the comments and let us know. Yeah. And Matthew, is there any questions?
Yeah, I think Dylan has covered uh, a bit. But today I think Dylan has covered like what are the key factor that developer will not. I mean the new launches will not drop. But it's actually finding all the profit margin, break even, and I think. I mean, in the end of the day, when we buy property, I think we need to really do our own research. Then I think now the data and figures are all very I mean, everyone can have the data when you just use Google, find out. I mean, news, they will tell you how much the land costs, all these things. From there, you can actually know that what are the type of property that you buy into. Of course, I think Dylan mentioned in the Clement Canopy. So why Clement Canopy have can sell so high is because sometimes it's the area lah. You know, Clementi is always in demand and short of supply. So when people start to cut to buy, right, there's no reason for developer to drop price. If the sales is good, the transaction is healthy. Just example lah. For example, if the percentage of the units sold and the transaction volume is high, there's no reason for them to really drop price. Even if the market is bad, we can still see people buying during this period. Actually, the developer have sold a lot of new launches during this period lah. So maybe I think Dylan, I think we cover all of what you need to cover already.
Yes,
And
correct.
can you go to the so next week I will be talking about more of a resale because we have a lot of when we meet client, right, they always ask us question, hey, because resale is something that I feel that we cannot control one. There's a so I will be touching on what are the uncontrolled environment that so that when you really want to go into resale, right, what can you choose select a property that might have a chance to preserve your money lah. I see. So yeah, so I hope that you can join us next week Sunday 2 p.m. I thank you for everyone that actually watched to the end. Uh, yeah, so thank you very much. Okay, see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.